The studio lights were bright that morning, almost painfully so, reflecting off polished floors, camera lenses, and the familiar desk where countless mornings had begun with laughter and carefully rehearsed ease. To viewers, it looked like just another episode, another slice of routine in a space that had become a daily companion. Kelly Ripa sat beside her husband, Mark Consuelos, as she had many times before, their smiles familiar and effortless. Yet beneath the surface of comfort, something subtle hung in the air, a quiet tension, as if the room itself sensed that this day would unfold differently. The image. The world sees. For decades, Mark has been known for confidence and balance, a charismatic actor, devoted husband, proud father, and man who seems to navigate life with certainty. From early roles to later successes, his career felt steady and intentional, admired for discipline, professionalism, and the partnership he shares with Kelly. Together, they have represented a form of grounded success, built on humor, mutual respect, and shared presence that viewers feel they know and trust. Strength behind the image. What rarely reaches the screen is the quiet weight behind that outward composure. Strength, particularly when expected by others, can become a performance rather than a refuge. Like many in public life, Mark carries responsibilities that extend beyond work, the pressure to support, protect, and remain composed at all times. Over years, these expectations quietly accumulate, creating a space where struggles exist but often go unnamed, even to those closest to him. A gentle shift. The moment that shifted the tone arrived softly, almost without warning. Kelly spoke candidly about the pressures of public life, of scrutiny, and the expectation to appear perfectly composed. Then, almost casually, she noted how people often see Mark as invincible, without realizing the weight he carries behind the scenes. The room grew quieter, not dramatically, but enough that the subtle shift was palpable. Reflex and vulnerability. Mark laughed at first, a reflexive response meant to maintain ease, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Kelly continued, not as a host, but as a partner, sharing reflections on sleepless nights and the quiet burden of always needing to be strong. She reminded him, and everyone present, that even the strongest people need permission to pause. It was a simple, disarming truth. No one must protect everyone all the time. The moment. Truth emerged. Mark's hands tightened on the desk, his gaze lowered. Emotion arrived before he could structure it, before he could resume the armor he had worn for so long. Tears came unbidden, sudden but human. Gasps moved through the studio, not of shock but recognition. Viewers and colleagues alike sensing the authenticity of a long-suppressed truth finally acknowledged. It was not dramatic. It was profoundly ordinary in its honesty. Words long waiting. When he spoke, Mark's voice carried quiet exhaustion rather than despair. He described the pressure of being a provider, protector, and public figure. The belief that strength meant silence, and the desire not to become a burden. Anxiety, self-doubt, and quiet fear had existed in the background for years, growing louder in the stillness of ordinary nights. Speaking those words out loud released a weight that had been carried alone for too long. Success does not erase struggle. One of the most important truths he shared was that success does not preclude struggle. There is a common misconception that a life that appears smooth, disciplined, and accomplished is free of difficulty. But pain is not selective. It exists wherever expectations meet human limits. Mark spoke of nights when the house was still, yet his thoughts refused rest, of questioning worth outside of roles and achievements, reminding everyone that human complexity exists beyond appearances. Partnership and clarity. Throughout the moment, Kelly's hand never left his. Her presence was not a solution, but a reminder that vulnerability does not have to be faced alone. Viewers witnessed a relationship not defined by perfection but by partnership, the quiet courage of two people allowing themselves to be honest together, to live intimacy rather than perform it. It was a rare, authentic glimpse of marriage at its real, sustaining core. Ripples beyond the studio. The resonance of that moment extended far beyond the studio. People shared clips not for sensation but because they felt seen. Messages arrived from viewers who recognized their own silent struggles, and mental health advocates highlighted the importance of witnessing male vulnerability expressed openly and without judgment. The moment became a reminder that public composure does not equal private invulnerability, and that honesty can ripple quietly outward to affect others. Kelly's reflections. Later, Kelly reflected on the experience, acknowledging that loving someone perceived as strong can make it easy to assume they are always fine. Endurance is often mistaken for contentment, she observed, and moments like this opened space for conversation that had waited for permission. Rather than weakening their bond, the exchange strengthened it, offering clarity and mutual understanding, reminding both of them that support is not a one-way act but a shared practice. A turning point. Mark described the experience not as losing control, but as releasing something he had carried too long. He spoke about learning to ask for help, to share burden, and to redefine strength as honesty rather than mere endurance. Relief followed unexpectedly, not because the struggle vanished, but because it no longer existed in isolation. A moment of openness transformed into a step toward ongoing emotional freedom. Why it resonated. In an industry built on polish and appearance, honesty can feel radical. This moment mattered not for celebrity but for humanity. It challenged the notion that outward success cancels inward difficulty, reminding viewers that vulnerability is courage expressed in real time. It spoke to anyone who smiles publicly while managing private struggles, validating the quiet bravery of ordinary honesty. After the cameras. When the show concluded, there was no dramatic finale, just two people sitting together, absorbing what had surfaced. In the days that followed, those around Mark noticed subtle changes, a lighter presence, a more genuine ease, a softening of the tension that had long lingered. Life did not become simple overnight, but the weight of carrying it alone had been shared, and that alone created space for breathing. Quiet ripples of impact. Messages continued to arrive from viewers inspired to speak their own truths, book therapy sessions, or reach out to loved ones. For Mark, this was the most meaningful outcome. A moment of unplanned honesty creating a ripple of quiet hope. It demonstrated that human connection, courage, and openness can spark meaningful change without fanfare, through the simplest acts of acknowledgement and care. The enduring truth. Sometimes the bravest act is simply to be seen, imperfect, human, vulnerable, under bright lights that leave nowhere to hide. Long after cameras fade and episodes conclude, the effect of a single honest moment can extend outward, encouraging others to release their own burdens. One conversation, spoken with authenticity and care, has the power to remind the world that shared humanity is more important than appearances, and connection is the truest form of strength. Living with the lesson. From that day forward, the lesson remained clear. Strength is not silence, and courage is not always loud. Life continues with its demands, yet moments of openness become anchors, reminders to pause, to listen, and to allow vulnerability without shame. In a world quick to reward composure, these quiet acknowledgments of truth create lasting clarity, trust, and a more grounded sense of self. Beyond public life. What unfolded in the studio reflected more than one family's experience. It echoed a universal truth about the human condition. We all carry unseen weight, and each of us benefits when it is acknowledged rather than hidden. The lesson is gentle but persistent. Honesty, presence, and support matter more than performance, and relationships deepen when we embrace the fullness of each other's humanity. A simple reminder. In the end, the story is not about celebrity or spectacle. It is about everyday courage expressed quietly. It is about the human capacity to share weight, to release what has been carried alone, and to be met with understanding rather than judgment. It reminds us that life's most meaningful moments are often unplanned, intimate, and profoundly real. The lasting effect. Mark and Kelly's exchange became a mirror for anyone who carries more than they show. It offered reassurance that sharing vulnerability does not weaken bonds, but strengthens them. Even under scrutiny and expectation, truth can be spoken, acknowledged, and held gently. The episode ended, But the ripple effect endured, touching lives far beyond the studio walls, a quiet testament to the power of presence and honesty. Moving forward, life continues as it always does, with its challenges, routines, and joys. Yet the experience left an indelible mark, a reminder that openness creates space for healing, connection, and authenticity. The cameras may fade, but the lesson remains, urging us to honor the unseen, respect the weight of others' lives, and choose presence over pretense. In doing so, the simplest acts of courage ripple outward, quietly changing the world, one honest moment at a time.